everyone, it's Sparrow, and welcome to my second stream. And if this is your first time, yeah, definitely welcome. And if you were here last week, welcome back. So, you would not believe how crazy windy it's been all day. I just checked. Fortunately, it seems like everybody has taken their laundry that was drying outside inside, which is good. That way we don't have another repeat of last night. Last night I had some laundry hanging out to dry, and when I went out to go get it, it was lying all over the ground. It was really bad. So I had to rewash all of my towels and stuff. But yeah, so I hope that I hope that you can't hear it. If you can hear it, I hope it's not too bad. But yeah, so let's get started. First of all, last week we were practicing speed dressing or speed running, as my mod Hungry Wolf called it, speed running. And so the contest was actually on Saturday. So I wanted to tell you guys about how it went before we get started on the meat of today's stream. So yeah, so this was the name of the contest, and this is the program. So this contest has a lot of different categories. Like the lowest category is yukata dressing, which is actually what we'll be doing today. But I was doing a special category called maeraku, which is like tying the obi in the front and then turning it. And there's a lot of different ways to do this, and I've heard that there are some schools that actually start students dressing in the front because they think it's easier when you can see what you're doing. My school goes in a bit of a different direction, so when you're a beginner, they actually start you with like an obi aid makura, which is both easier and more difficult than doing it our normal way, which is behind our backs. But the maeraku for us is something that you can actually do as a performance because it is very, very specific what you do when. Oh, hi, Knight. Good to have you back. So we're just talking right now about how the contest went. So when I got there in the morning, like I knew that my category was I believe the last one to compete. So I was a little bit surprised. Everybody was in kind of a big rush when I got there. And I got my number, I got my program, and then the first thing they do, they give me this bento box. And I can just tell they're like, you need to hurry and eat this. And as I'm eating, and more than half the people are already dressed, and I'm just there in my yofuku, in my Western clothes. Like, I thought I would have more time. We're the last ones to go on. So I'm eating, and someone comes over, and they make this big deal about you need to be dressed and ready by 12:30. And I'm just I just opened my bento. How much time do I have? So, like, I was hurrying to eat, and then as I start getting dressed, one of the teachers comes over, and she was trying to be helpful by making sure that I got dressed properly, I guess. It was kind of weird because, I've done this a million times. I know what to do, but she's just like, "Okay, now, now padding." And I'm just like, "Yeah, of course. I always do padding. Like, do you have your tabi?" I'm like, "Of course I have my tabi." Like, I really And then once I finished getting ready, then she went away. And so I'm really not sure what was going on with that teacher. Maybe they were just feeling a little bit nervous about the gaijin-san. But okay, yeah, no problem. Uh, just good to have you, and yeah. So hopefully you can see some stuff that you haven't done before. And yeah, so once I got ready and I did a couple of practice runs, they they let us downstairs, and I guess they wanted everyone to already be there by the time the first category started. So that's why there was a bit of a rush, I suppose. And sitting there and was getting a little bit nervous, and strangely enough, once I got on stage, I wasn't really nervous at all. So even though I was wearing my mask so you couldn't see, like I tried to like take deep breaths and smile as I was doing it, just trying to show that I was feeling comfortable with what I was doing. I did make a few mistakes. I first thing out of the gate, instead of grabbing like this, I grabbed like this. And I realized it right away. And so when I was in the process of pulling out my collars and my hem, I just very quickly switched my hands so that I was holding it the right way. But yeah, I'm sure the judges probably saw. But I just tried to do the best I could. And once I got started, I noticed I was actually going very, very fast. I already had my obi wrapped around and tightened and started to actually make the otaiko when most of the other people around me were still turning the obi around their waist. So, but I didn't feel like I was rushing or being sloppy, so I decided that the best course of action was to just keep going at the pace that felt comfortable. So I kept going, and by the time the 2-minute buzzer went off, I actually already had the obi turned around and had already tied my gauze, which is the fastest I have ever done it. So at that point, I decided to slow way down. So I wanted to make sure that because I had actually tons of time, that I wanted my accessories to be perfect. I did not want to have to touch the accessories at all when I was fixing anything. So I made sure that it was, folded beautifully, tied nicely, and checked everything. I was very confident with how it came out. And I was the second person to finish. I think if I had kept up the same pace, I would have probably been the first to finish. And my teachers were really, really impressed by both how quickly I was, by how quickly I did it, and by how nice it looked. So I felt pretty confident at the time that at the very least I would get an honorable mention. But once I got off stage, I did notice that there was a very, very big mistake that I didn't realize I had made at the time, which was, you might remember from the very last attempt on stream last week, which was my collar had come too far forward and squished my juban collar in the back. So my teachers, where they were sitting, said they couldn't tell at all. Whenever they came to compliment me and I told the teacher, she was really surprised to hear that that was an issue. So we weren't sure if it was going to count against me or not, but it must have because I didn't get anything. No honorable mention, but I'm kind of okay with it because it is a pretty big mistake. So I understand that if the judges noticed it, then that would be a substantial amount of points off. But I'm also really okay because I feel like I did a very good job for compared to the first time I did the contest. And I was very happy that I wasn't panicked. I didn't make a ton of mistakes or anything like that. I was very happy with my performance, and generally I was happy with the result. So, oh, hey, Tacky. I'm happy to have you, and I'm glad you're still awake since you could be here. Um, yeah, right now we were just talking a bit about the contest. So, yeah, even though I didn't win anything, I still feel really pleased with how well everything went and how I did. So, this week my original plan was to play with padding and stuff like that. But I thought last week we had some people come in who were not familiar at all with Kitsuke. And so after doing my speed running, I thought this week it would be really nice to do something that more people can get practical use of. Because padding is really, really great for those of us who've been doing kimono for a while. That's usually an aspect of Kitsuke that people don't get the opportunity to learn properly and just kind of have to mess with it from like bits and pieces that they pick up over the years or just by trial and error experimentation. So I know for those of us who do Kitsuke that that's actually going to be a really fun, really fascinating thing to work on. But I thought this time we'll go ahead and we'll do yukata because it is June. So we're getting on more festival season if you have festivals that are going on right now with COVID or conventions, and lots of people have yukata even if they're not interested in wearing proper kimono. So I thought this would be a nice thing. So we're going to start off with the yukata, and I'll show you everything that I'm going to be using. And if there's some areas where you might have something different, I'll try to talk about that as well. And then we'll do the really basic chocho hanhaba musubi. And from there, we'll do some variations and some ways that you can play with it if you've gotten to the point where the classic chocho is just a little basic for you. So, okay, let's go ahead and get started. So, here I have. I know, you're so excited over there. Okay. So I've already done my padding. I know. Actually, I showed my Mayaraku teacher part of my stream from last week, and all I wanted to do was show her the actual practice, but before I had a chance to like fast forward through, she actually saw and noticed that my shitagi was showing at the beginning of the video. No, you shouldn't do that. But I was explaining how to do padding. I said, well, yeah, but you should wear your you should have on your nagajuban and then just explain the padding. And like, well, truth be told, even though, yeah, this is my shitagi, it's covering everything. It's covering everything, so what's the big deal? And also, I think that it's one thing to teach it's one thing to teach padding over other clothing if you're actually teaching in person, but if I'm teaching you on a video, it's a lot harder for me to demonstrate something if I've already padded underneath. So, yeah. Anyway, yes. Yeah, isn't this fun? It's my tropical fruit yukata from, I believe, Kimono Machi. So it's a little bit short in the yuki, but it's really fun and I love it. So I thought it was brightly colored and so it would be fun for the stream. I will fight you. I will fight you, Wolf. Anyway, so I have already done some padding. I'm wearing my padded bra. My ideal yuki my ideal yuki is about 68 centimeters. I know, my honor is tainted. How dare you? All right, so today, we have the yukata, and then the padding I have already done myself, but we're not really going to focus too much on it today because I know most people, when you're wearing yukata, are not going to actually be padding. So the first thing, we have our korin himo. Everyone should remember from last week, I love this thing. Use it all the time. If you don't have this and you just have a muslin himo, or if you use something that you've made yourself, that's perfectly fine. And then I have my datejime, and for this one, I'm using the datejime with clips. And of course, whatever datejime you have will work fine. If you don't have one, oh, 70, I can do up to 70. I usually look for at least 68 if I'm buying secondhand. I think that maybe 68 or 68.5 is what my custom kimono is. But even like my custom kimono only go to about here, so they don't have that like over wrist action going on. And then today we're using one of these. You can use one without the elastic, but because we're turning the obi, I recommend using this kind with the elastic. And then, of course, hanhaba obi. And I have something special for a little bit later, but that's going to be a bit of a surprise. So, first things first, you want to make sure that the tomoeri, which is this fold here, is lining up on both sides. So one mistake that a lot of people make is not getting the yukata perfectly straightened before getting started. You can adjust it, but it's a lot harder to adjust it later than to adjust it at first. Well, too bad. You're gonna have to wait. So once you have this, and for yukata, I know a lot of people don't like to have special foundation pieces for different things, but for yukata, if you can get a one-piece shitagi that has the polyester on the bottom, I highly, highly, highly recommend this for yukata. Because right now, I have one, but it's in Texas. So everything I have on right now is cotton. And the problem with that is I'm supposed to lower this, but the cotton of the yukata and the cotton of the shitagi are sticking to each other. So I can't easily lower my hems, and it's a lot harder to get it to line up neatly at the bottom edge. So if you have one or can get the kind that has the polyester on the bottom, that's going to make your life a whole heck of a lot easier when you are wearing yukata. So, now of course, if you are new to kitsuke, you do not want to just put this side and then this side. Yeah, shitagi, shita means under or below, and then gi is clothes. So shitagi is just like hara juban, han juban, all of that good stuff. So people have different pieces, different kinds of shitagi. So that's why I default to just using the umbrella term these days. And another thing that gets a lot of people is when they are doing the ohashori, there's a lot of bulk here. And so there's a few areas that can affect this, but the first thing you want to make sure you do when you are raising the inside hem, you want to bring this collar very, very high so that that collar is actually sitting about where the obi is going to. So that's going to remove a little bit of bulk right there. Okay, and then I have the right collar. Sorry, no, left. My webcam perspective is messing with my directions again. Okay, now I'm going to use my elastic hemo. Now, of course, this is women's yukata. If you have a men's yukata, it's a completely different dressing process. But of course, if you have a women's yukata, you have this giant hole in here. And this is so you can reach in and you can actually smooth out the front, the back, and then the front again. So a lot of this actually happens on the inside. So the next thing we're going to do, and this is the other really key step in order to keep your ohashori nice and neat. So I will always do this on the inside, but just for demonstration. So if we just adjust the collar here and do nothing, you can even kind of see in the camera that it's a little bit big right here. Yeah? So what you want to do is you want to make a bit of a triangle shape here. So you want to fold up the extra. See? Light. Oh, you didn't notice? Yeah, it's tropical fruit. It makes me very hungry, but fruit is very expensive in Japan. So you want to fold up the extra material, and when you're dressing okay, 2 a.m., that's fair. So when you get dressed by a professional dresser in Japan, they'll actually often do exactly what I just did. They'll make this on the outside and then tuck it in. And that's just because some people can get a little bit uncomfortable if you reach your hands as the dresser, if you reach your hands inside the kimono when they are wearing it. Some people might feel uncomfortable, or even as the dresser yourself, you might feel uncomfortable doing that, just worrying if the other person will be uncomfortable. So it's a nice technique to have. I know. I have a really hard time with doing it on the outside, but that's something I want to practice and work on. So then I have my datejime with the clip here. And of course, you want to make sure that you have it with the narrow side down. If you were here last week, you might remember that little detail. And I want to make sure, of course, that everything is laying nice and flat. And I'm going to slowly ease up and let out a little bit of that extra fabric until it's laying flat. And then this side, I just want to lay neatly and then take the other clip and snap that shut. See the technique that I mentioned. The first one, or the one that I just was doing, because the first one was, yes, yeah. So yeah, it could be a little tough to keep track. The right hand panel. So that might have been, make sure that when you pull up the side, when you're measuring each side, or make sure that it's pulled up so that the collar isn't going to get in the way on the inside. Or could be this one, which is folding up all of the extra material so that it's lying underneath the obi and not in the ohashori. Okay. Okay, now, of course, if you don't have this style of datejime, but you have a korin belt, you would use it much the same way. So you would clip this side, and then instead of doing this in the front, you would pull the himo around behind you and then clip it on this side. Of course, if you don't have either of those things, then you don't have to worry about that at all. So I'm going to go ahead and tie this. So usually we wrap it 2 times, pull them around to either side, and then tuck them in. Now I mentioned if you don't have this and you don't have a korin belt, you can go without, actually. So if you don't have either one, to keep the collars nice and neat, you should use an additional like mune himo. So basically this one is not good for this because this is too slippery, but it's what I have on hand. So instead of using this, you would arrange your collars with a muslin himo and then use this to keep everything neat. And then you would use whatever datejime that you normally would use. All right, now this already looks pretty good, but I am a bit picky. I know, so comfortable. But of course, like as I mentioned before you came in, Taki, I don't know if we're going to have some people in the chat today who maybe are not from the kimono group. So They may not have all of these fancy dressing items. So for yukata, I know a lot of people have yukata, but maybe not a lot of other things. I want to make sure that this is as inclusive a tutorial as possible. So now with this, and this is actually a nice little feature that if you're using this kind of datejime that you can do, but it doesn't really work with a lot of other types. So I like to fold this up. Oh, I know, I remember. But yeah, so what I'm doing here is I've folded everything up, and then I'm just going to even out my ohashori, and then fold this back down. And so then on the side, I'm going to take the side like this, and I'm going to fold it back and tuck that inside. And then we'll do it on this side as well, almost like you're tucking the top excess underneath down, and then taking the little tag here, and we're going to tuck it inside the collar. And so that is all I am going to do for now, actually. I'm gonna pull up a little bit here. Now, normally for kimono, I would actually do that after putting on the obi-ita, but this time the yukata is going to stay fairly easily, so it's a little bit easier to do it beforehand. And of course, the easiest way to do this is actually just sorry, I will be guarding this with my life. Oh. I usually go for more gothy kinds of aesthetics, but I mean, how could I say no to fruit? I can't. Okay, so now I'm using this hanhaba obi. So we have this nice like woven pattern on this side. It's actually a lot brighter than it appears in camera. And then the other side is a really, really dark purple with, I think, chrysanthemums. So because this is a very, very bright kimono, I actually want to use this brighter purple. Now, this is sort of a nitpicky thing, but I really do recommend that you do this. You want to make sure this is a brand new obi. I've never ever used it before, so it doesn't really matter which side I fold. But in the future, you look at the obi now, you can see there's a fold line. So if you're not careful, and then you go ahead and next time you just grab it and don't pay any attention, you can then add that fold line on this side too. So it's a really good idea, especially if you're buying a secondhand obi or borrowing a friend's obi, or even just are using your own obi but for a second or third time. Always look for that fold line and try to make sure that you're always using the same side as the teisaki. So this narrow side that you folded is called the teisaki. Now, of course, if you've already done that and there's already a fold line on both sides, it doesn't really matter. But if you are careful from this point forward, then you can actually make sure that that it doesn't get a very deep fold on each side if you're careful from this point forward. So I'm going to do the same thing as I did on the other time and turn myself so that the obi stays in one place, but it still wraps around me. Now there's a lot of different ways that you can handle this transition. I like to basically get a triangular fold here, but that's just my personal preference. It really doesn't matter as long as everything lines up neatly. It really doesn't matter if that's really neatly folded or not. Okay, so going to tighten that a little bit and then turn again. Now, when you tighten, you want to hold this in place and hold from the bottom edge and pull forward. Now, if you pull out like this, it's a lot harder actually to pull this way than it is to just pull forward. And you get it tightened a little bit neater. Now here, and this is another area that if you are careful, you can get this to look really, really nice, even though this is a very basic sort of knot. So this part here where you're going to tie should be half. But instead of just folding this part in half and then tying, where this is going to be a little bit messy, you want to fold it and then make a gentle curve so that in the front it is perfectly flat. And we're going to take this part, the teisaki, and just tuck it through the back and tighten. You want to get that nice and tight, because while chocho is a very easy knot to do, it's also a bit tricky to get it to stay nice and upright. So you always want to make sure that you're tightening and laying everything neatly. So first we are doing a very, very basic chocho. So you want to take the haresaki edge, so this unfolded edge, and measure it to your shoulders. And we're going to take that width and you're going to fold it inward and then again. So when you do this, you have everything is folded around, so you have a nice, neat, singular ribbon. And then I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to line it up with this extra because I don't want that to be loose and making things look messy. So I want that to line up as best as I can. And then I am going to fold this out. And then I'm going to fold each outside edge to the fold on the inside. So you can see now we already have this nice ribbon shape. And now here we're going to take this teisaki that we made earlier And we are going to wrap this around and pull that nice and tight. And now a lot of the older tutorials that you'll see will tell you to wrap this around again, pull it through the top, just like we did before. See? Yeah, I've definitely done that in the past too. Because, yeah, you can make a beautiful shape and then think it looks great, and then you see pictures from later in the day, and you just got like this droopy taiko, and you can see your datejime. Like, it's really easy to do, but I think difficult to master. So what we do, actually, instead of wrapping this around a second time and pulling it out the top, is we actually just take this and then tuck it in directly. So instead of pulling it out the back, tightening, and then tucking it down, we just directly tuck it down. Now, I didn't make my teisaki quite long enough to show you easily, but I'm going to do my best. So you can see this teisaki folded edge underneath. I'm actually going to open that up. And that's just going to give a little bit of protection against the teisaki coming out. Now, this part is very, very important. So what we do not want is this. So we've all seen the tsuke obi, the pre-tied obi, that have those really cardboard looking bows that just sit flat against the body. And we don't want that with an actual tied chocho musubi. So what you want to do instead is you want to have it more of a sideways sort of bow. So it's going flat, but pointing out. And then, yeah, you just sort of fluff it until you like the way it looks. And then go ahead and turn that around. Mine's a little bit uneven in the front, so I'm just going to pull the inside layer down a little bit until I like where it's laying. What do you think? Yeah, so that is your absolute most basic chocho musubi. Oh, thank you. So now is where we're gonna get started on some more fun. So first, let's do just some very, very basic variations. So when I first started doing kitsuke, I did the normal chocho just like I did now. But then I thought, oh, well, what if instead of folding it the normal way, what if I fold it so that the reverse is the ribbon? So you can see this is looking a little bit darker because this is the underside. And then I do the center part of the ribbon exactly the same. So it's going to be the same bright color as the obi going around the body, and just contrasting with the ribbon just a little bit. And then fluff that out. nice and neat. And of course, this is going to be a lot more dramatic with a different obi, because this darker, almost black purple, it does contrast a little bit. So this is actually a really nice, subtle obi to do this with. But if you're wanting something really, really dramatic, you can do this with something where the two sides are completely different, or one of the reversible ones where it's the same design, but the colors are flipped on each side. So, of course, and then we would fold it, or not fold, we would turn exactly the same as before. So I think that is probably, anyone who's done kitsuge for a long enough time, you've probably naturally come to that variation. Now, the next really basic variation that I really enjoy doing, so we're going to measure as normal. So before, what we did was we folded this down, and then just did that guru, folding it in on itself over and over and over again. But this time, instead of doing that, we're going to fold this one down the same as before, and then we're going to fold it. So now we have this kind of shape. Right. Now again, same as before, I'm going to line this up as best I can. And that's just to keep it a little bit neater. And do everything else the same. Okay, now here is where this one gets to be really, really fun. So now, instead of just floofing out like this, you're going to want to separate the under ribbon from the ribbon on the top. And you can do some adjustments, because I think this side was a little bit on the long side. So to fix that, I just pulled a little bit on the top layer on this side. So you can make little adjustments like that without having to start over. So now you can kind of see we have a double ribbon. So, and in terms of these really basic variations on chocho musubi, this one is actually my favorite. And this obi is really, really nice for this one, because like this top ribbon is all the same bright purple, and then this one is also the same bright purple, but this one actually is just that darker purple. So it's just very, very subtle. So if you haven't played around with these variations before, I highly recommend. Now, we're gonna try a few other ways that you can take your chocho and you can make it your own. Now, first thing I want to show you is actually, it doesn't matter how you've done the back. You can actually do this with any of them. Now, first, like I did before, I'm going to make sure that everything is lining up where I want it. Oh, there we go. Now, because I've been just messing with it without paying much attention to the front. The front actually got a little bit messy compared to how I would ordinarily like it. Okay, so here we are bringing out our mystery item. So this is what is known as a kazari himo. So kazari means like decorative, and then himo, of course, is ribbon, tie, or cord. And so this is just a decorative braid that is considerably shorter than your standard obijime. Like, you can't really wear this around your waist. Now, if you are searching for this, if you're searching online for this, you might run into some trouble because there are two different items that are both called kazari himo, and they if you are not sure of what you're looking for, it can be very, very easy to get them confused. So one item is called a kazari himo yukata yo, which is kazari himo for yukata. And that is basically a obijime that is designed and made only for wearing with yukata. So they usually have some kind of flower that is preset onto an obijime, usually with some kind of bead or gem dangling off the side, or like off the edges. So then you would just put it on, put the flower wherever you want it in the front, and then tie it in a bow. But this is a much more this is an item that you can use for many, many, many different things. So the yukata yo kazari himo can only be used in that one way. They're not appropriate for any kind of kimono other than yukata. So this, I have worn this in my hair, I've done it in my obi. There's all kinds of things you can do with this. They're just a little bit tricky to find sometimes. So the first way that we're going to use this today, I'm just going to take the top layer. So if I fold this down, you can see that there's still the first wrap around, and I'm just going to take both edges and I'm just going to scrunch them together. And then pass this through, and then tie. Of course, you want to be careful when you're tying this because you want to make sure that it is looking very aesthetic. Yeah, so you can do that. So you can see you get this nice little textured effect. And you get your nice little contrast. I chose orange because, you know, there's oranges all over this. And it would contrast really nicely with the purple. So this can be a nice little fun thing that you can do that doesn't require any additional skill. So this is a really nice thing that you can do when you're first starting out, but still wanting to look fancy. in your yukata. But now, let's do a couple things for our experienced viewers. Okay. Now, everything has kind of shifted a bit, so I want to do this again. Now, this time, I'm gonna do the same thing. I want this to be half, but I'm gonna do something a little bit special this time. So this time, instead of folding it in, I'm gonna fold it out. And I'm just gonna leave that the way it is for now. Because I can adjust that later. And then we're still doing chocho, so I'm still going to tie this so that the teisaki is over. Back up. Unless it has other ideas. Which, yeah, sometimes our kitsuke has a mind of its own, right? Now, this time, open this up. And now before, we were measuring to our shoulders. And still do the same thing, but this time we're going to do it a little bit shorter. I'm going to fold that in just like before. But you'll see that I'm not lining it up perfectly. So line that up. And then I'm going to make the same ribbon this time. Pull. And then in. All right, now this time you can actually see that this is significantly different than it was before. So now I have the same sort of double ribbon, double bow, except now this center bow is much, much shorter. And to balance it out, it has longer wings on either side. And again, because it's still that same next to each other fold, continuous fold, we still have this one wing of the ribbon that is the contrast color. So this is another just very simple way. Oh, thank you. So that's another simple way that you can do, but you do have to sort of play with the balance on this one in order to get it to look right. All right, and this time, yeah, I really do need to wrap this again because my obi-ita, it moved on me. Yeah, yukata, I think a lot of us in the kimono community, it can be very easy to discount yukata because it can be viewed as somewhat basic. And when you really enjoy doing kitsuke so much, it's very easy to think that, well, I want to do kitsuke, and kimono is a much bigger challenge. So I want to wear the kimono and be fancy. But yukata can be really, really fun. And you can actually do a lot of things, finessing, or with the musubi, it's rather easy to adjust or make variations of different musubi when you're doing yukata. And because it is more casual, you have so much more flexibility to get creative and do something fun. So I think that when I first got into kimono, like I think I had maybe one or two yukata, and I just kept buying more and more kimono stuff. And I do kind of regret that. I think that at the time I was maybe a bit of a kitsuke snob, and I didn't see how fun, like legitimately fun, yukata are. So yeah, I'm glad I'm doing this with you guys today. So this is another sort of variation on the one I just did with the uneven. So this time, I'm gonna measure that out. But this time, and so here we're getting into territories of you just know. You just know. So the other ones, you can kind of systematically line them up so that the balance is good. What we're doing now doesn't really have that. So you just kind of play with it. So you might end up having to adjust after, or it might be perfect. You never know. So oh, good. And now here, just because, I'm going to do a thing. So you can do this a few different ways. So one thing that you can do is just fold a little bit in and try and keep it in a bit of a straight line down. So if you can see, it just has this little darker stripe here. So this is a little bit more advanced. So the first about 3 that I did were very, very easy, very simple variations. I think anyone can do. Once you get the simple chocho, those are very easy to make. I think this one and everything from this point is a little bit more advanced. So they're for my experienced kimono dressers in the audience. So this is actually this is a small change that you can make that isn't difficult. Even with those easier musubi, you can still do this. Even if the variation I'm doing now is a little bit high for you, you can still do this. So just instead of folding this down as is, you just fold out a little bit. And then when you do it, yeah, you have this little bit of color here. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go out more. So this is completely opened on the end and it's folded at an angle. Where is it? Here we go. And Kitsuke is not always for the faint of heart. I just seriously popped my pinky finger trying to open up this obi. Okay, but we are good. So now, I don't know if you can see that, but we have the same base color here, and then we have here and here going at an angle is the darker color. And then here we're going to fluff out, just like we did before. And we have a bit of a longer wing here, and then a very, very short wing here, and then a very long one. So here now you can see that there is no balance like there was before. So before, even when I did the double ribbon, they still were roughly even on each side. So the balance is really, really easy to achieve in that sense. But now we're getting into things that you have to know what is balance when it's not even. So even though the technique is largely the same, that's what makes this a little bit more advanced, because it's a little bit harder to make it look intentional and nice like this. Okay, now I'm gonna go ahead and turn this one because I forgot to show you on the last one why we folded out. So here you can see my contrast color. And if I was doing this the normal way, like I did at first, where it's just folded in, you would want this to be laying exactly where it is now because it's under your arm, so you're not going to see that fold. But I folded it out so you can see the contrast color. So now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to make this way, way, way more dramatic. And I'm going to go all the way across the front. So now we have the base layer, that's the bright purple, and then the second layer, that's the bright purple on top, and then in the center, we have that contrast color. Now this is all just based on your own taste and your own preference. Now, there's some people in Japan who are very, very staunch traditionalists, and they think that if you take your hanhaba obi and you fold it so that the underside, the contrast color is showing, it's so tacky. But I like it, so I do it. Not all the time, but sometimes it's fun. Like this is a really, really fun yukata. And to balance out all of the craziness of these bright fruits, I did pick a somewhat simple, not exactly single color. It does have some texture and it does have some color variation. But if I was doing this and I just had it all one color, it would still look okay. But I feel like adding just this small contrast here just makes the yukata, the crazy yukata, and the more simple obi look a little bit more cohesive. So if you like it, you should do it because it is a legit technique. And even if some people who are very, very serious about this is exactly what kitsuge should look like, and if you are serious about kitsuge, you can't do these things because they're not they're not mature enough, then you don't need to listen to them. If you like it, you like it. You should do it. That's my attitude. Anyway. So now, even this one, while we're getting a little bit more into advanced territory, it's still largely the same. Now, one thing, another little thing that you can do here, if I make this a little bit bigger on this side, so again, I can just pull if I want to make this part a little bit wider. Of course, that still looks pretty good. You can also something like this. And I can fold this over in, or if it's long enough, I can even fold it forward. So I'm going to make sure that I like the way that these two are sitting together because this is such a focal piece. It's so long that it's always going to draw the eye. So if I am focusing all of my attention on making sure that I like this one and I like where this is laying, and then I have now completely smushed this back because that's where my hand was, now it just looks like I don't know what I'm doing. So while you are wanting to play with this, you should also make sure that you're not neglecting this guy over here. And you shouldn't neglect him either. So now, because I also did this here, and I'm kind of winging it at this point, like I don't know exactly which slight variations, like with this part here. I don't always know exactly which ones I'm going to tell you when. So I didn't exactly plan, but I really like how we're going from the brighter purple here to this this double stripe of the dark color. And then you can't really see the bright purple here anymore because this is now covering it up. But it's kind of interesting in a way that we have this dark, almost black purple here, here, and then here. And then just this tiny, tiny little bit of that bright purple. I think it gives it an interesting. All right. All right, now this one, of course, you can do it with whatever length you want, but because I already have this made up, I'm gonna kind of leave it for the moment. I want to show you. Actually, no, I want this to be a little bit wider. Okay, so I just made the wings in this case pretty much even on both sides. Now I'm gonna turn this. Now I'm not turning this all the way because I still want this purple on this side, this time at least. So I just kind of fold this over. So this side is dark and this side is bright. Now, let's do it again. We're still doing chocho after all, so let's make that same shape. And then this is a little bit on the simple side. So I'm going to show you one more thing that you can do with this teisaki. This is actually legit one of my favorites. So instead of opening it up in some way, like we did before, I'm going to turn this. So it's all the same color still. You do get a little bit of this dark color just because the two sides separated a little bit when I twisted it. But what you're getting instead of the color contrast is you're getting a texture contrast. So you can actually see all of these, in the case of this obi, you can see all of the woven pattern. But even if it didn't have that woven pattern, it's very uneven, but it's uneven in a way that's very aesthetic. I'm going to go ahead and tuck that just like I did before. So that's how it looks. And so now, because we've twisted this beforehand, we basically have made half and half. So both of the wings on this side are now purple, like the bright purple. And then this side is the very, very dark purple. But also because it's twisted, and because we kept this side the same, this is not a perfect ribbon here. This shape is not exactly the same as everything else, and it does sit a little bit forward, which is just a really fun little detail, and it makes it look very unique that you don't see everybody do. And then here as well, the shape is not quite the same because we've twisted this side. So you can see it almost has a bit of a box seat kind of look, where instead of these laying next to each other like an M, it is angled this. So almost reminds me a little bit of, oh, is it trying to kick you off? Yeah, so the shape here, it just reminds me a little bit of like a calla lily, the way that the two sides look like they're overlapping in a sort of curved manner. So that's something else that you can twist this first. And I combined these two. I like the way that they look together, but you don't have to. You can do this part the same everything that I'm showing you right now, I'm showing you all of these different variations, and you can mix and match, and you can make up your own thing. Just play with it. That's what's really, really great about chocho, is it's such a simple, basic shape and a basic technique that you can adjust in infinite ways to be creative, to make something your own, or adjust, because chocho can look very childish because it's the first, sometimes the only musubi that some people will ever learn. You're in Japan and you only wear yukata to summer festivals, you probably don't have a need to learn anything more than chocho. So it has this impression in Japan of being something very childish. So if you're a grown woman who is wearing chocho, just a very basic chocho, then sometimes people will think, oh, why is why is this woman wearing something that's just such a cute childish shape? So these are very, very simple ways that you can be creative with it, still do something that's fairly simple, but that you can make your own, and you're not going to have that impression of dressing below your age if you're an adult, or just wearing something simple if you are the kind of person like me who's just a little bit extra. Now I have one more thing that I want to show you. And wow, you've gotten so much done today. I wasn't sure if a 2-hour stream was going to be enough time. Right, so same as before. Open this up. Okay. Now here, I have my base. So I'm going to do the same thing that I've been mostly doing, where I'm not going around itself, I'm going side to side. And once you're getting into making variations, this is probably going to be your best friend, because when you're going around, there's not a lot you can change. But when you have it lying next to each other like this, you have a little bit more flexibility. Now here, last time we twisted it just once, and we left this side purple. This time, we want to twist this all the way around. Now, you're not going to be able to really see what this is going to look like right away. Right now, it's just going to look a little bit funny. But bear with me. So again, we're going to make our two mountains next to each other. Tie this on top. Wrap it around, just as we did before. Tighten. And this time I'm just going to do it bog standard. Nothing fancy with the center. Now, with the fluffing and making it pretty, this is where you're going to see what we actually just did here. Now here, we have kind of a pocket now. And I'm gonna open this up. Like I can actually stick my hand in here. And then this side's gonna be fairly normal. So, but here, now of course, just did the basic technique, but it's up to you to play with it and then decide where it is that you want it to sit and how you want it to sit. So I think, yeah, so you can do it. Like I have a little bit of a ribbon here, but you don't need to have that. So you can do this in a way where both of these wings are here, and then on this side it's only this. But I decided to make just a little bit there, and then I'm just going to arrange them so that this side is kind of supporting this one. And I can't remember if this is actually what it's called, but I have seen this called pitcher plant. Like those carnivorous plants that are kind of shaped like this, like the Vitribell from Pokemon. So it's kind of got that shape, and so I have seen it called like a pitcher plant musubi when you have this shape here. And then, yeah, I'm going to make sure that this is sitting nicely. And so this is interesting. It's very dynamic. And it's definitely something you can play with. And because I did it the way I did, where this bright purple was on the outside and this dark purple is on the inside, it kind of looks a little bit like a black hole or an abyss because it's just so dark on the inside. Hanhaba musubi, I always do on the front and then turn around. Because I'm showing you so many today, I didn't want to always turn it around, but pretty much hanhaba obi musubi are very difficult to do behind you, especially once you start playing with these fancier shapes. So I think there's some things that you can do, but I think it is up to your comfort level. I always do that. So I would say one thing that you can do in the back if you're more comfortable with it is for if you're making an otaiko using a hanhaba musubi. That's something that you can do either partially in the back or fully in the back if you prefer. But even with that one, I prefer doing it in the front because lining up the two, the te and the taresaki, and then trying to make the otaiko shape even without anything getting rumpled or pulled aside or falling out of place. It's just so much easier to do that in the front and then turn the whole thing. But yeah, so actually, yeah, so this one's the last one I wanted to show you today. And oh, feeling warm. But there are some other things I want to show you. So first of all, this. Now, now that I've shown you the basic shape, I'm going to go ahead and, so if I want to, this is another place where I can use my kazari himo from before. So instead of using it in the front, I can do this here. And so there's a couple different ways that you can do this. So right now I have it just the top layer. So the original wraparound is still in place as normal. So I'm just tightening this so you can get a little bit of that scrunched effect. And again, just tie that in a bow. And if I make these a little bit smaller, you can also get a little bit creative with this. And so what I'm doing here is I'm just wrapping this around and through. And you want to be careful when you're doing this because you can very, very easily just completely untie your bow. So here I have just taken the extra and made a little flower. So that's one thing you can do. If you do this and you make it into a little flower, be careful when you're untying it as well. Now, what I did there, you can theoretically do this just across without scrunching, but it's a little bit difficult because this part is actually so wide. But you can take, where is this? And of course, if you ever have any questions at any point, please feel free to let me know so I can answer those. I'm kind of moving at a bit of a brisk pace, I understand. So do not hesitate to ask if you have any questions. Okay, looks like I don't have the wider ones. So what I'm going to do here is if you have a bobby pin that's more of like a U shape, those are really ideal for this. I do not know where mine are right now, so I'm just going to take a regular bobby pin. I'm going to stretch it out just a little bit. I want this to be fairly secure. And then there's actually a lot of special ways that you can tie these, but we're going for fairly easy things I think that most people can do today. So we're just going to stick with a pretty little bow. And now that I have my bow, I'm just going to take this and I'm going to stick it inside here. Now you need to be a little bit careful here because this is not the most secure. So if you need to be, if you're working like a matsuri or you're running around a convention, this is, and you want to use one of these, this is probably not the best way to secure this because it's just a bobby pin and it's just tucked inside. So some other way, like the one I just showed you where you tie it to the obi, is a much, much more secure method if you're not sure of how much activity you're going to actually be doing. But if it just needs to be pretty, this is really nice because you don't have those foundation structural bits of cord being used. You can just have this really big, pretty bow. All right. Now we turn. All right, let's go. And I did it again. My obi-ita is right here. I wish I still had my maeraku obi-ita here, but I do not. It is back at my classroom. So here is the last little technique that I want to show you. So this time, or like the time before, we have this fold still remaining. And you can also fold down the top. Now, of course, if you don't want this bottom one, you don't have to. If you still want a little bit of that contrast, but you don't want this one going across the bottom, you can just do this top one. Or you can do both. And so here, I've chosen to go almost parallel with each other. But even that, you don't have to. So I can choose to make, for example, this side lower and have it taper up like this. So instead of going with each other like it was before, now it is getting gradually wider. Oh, I am very warm. But I hope that this was helpful for you. If you are a beginner, I hope that the yukata part, you were able to get some good tips on making it look nice and clean and to be able to tie the chocho musubi in a way that looks nice and will hopefully not droop on you like chocho is prone to do, even for advanced people. It still happens to me sometimes if I'm not being careful. So I hope so that you can avoid that pitfall because nothing sucks more than you're at a festival and you're feeling amazing and you look cute and then you look at the pictures later and you see like the pink datejime that you just had no idea and you would have fixed if you knew but you didn't. And so hopefully you can avoid that by using what I showed you. And if you are an experienced Kitsuge dresser, then I hope that the little variations that I showed you can help you figure out ways that you can play with hanhaba musubi, even chocho, and have a little bit more fun with your hanhaba obi musubi lifestyle. So, all right, now now that we have the technique portion of today's stream done, now we have a little bit of, yeah, let's talk. So, as I mentioned last week, if you were here, you'll remember I have a really inconsistent schedule because of my school. Both my Japanese language school and my kimono school lifestyle, I have I, my schedule changes in the blink of an eye. Sometimes they don't tell me that they need me at school until literally the day before. And actually that happened yesterday. I was at my school for my Maeraku course. And the teacher asks me, actually, she doesn't ask me. She says, "So I'll see you tomorrow, right?" And I had a date with you guys, and this is really important to me. I put it on the schedule. I said I was going to be here. And so I told her, I have plans. I am teaching online tomorrow. I can't go to whatever is scheduled because they didn't tell me until yesterday. And so that kind of thing, unfortunately, happens a lot. So I will try to always make Thursday if I can, but if I have to reschedule a Thursday, I will try to make sure that that's something I let you guys know well in advance. I do not want to have Wednesday roll around and then suddenly be like, "Oh, hey, sorry guys, I can't make it tomorrow." That's something I want to avoid. But I want to be able to do more than one day a week. But unfortunately, my schedule is just too hard to predict. And so I, at the moment, have been letting my kimono friends know on those dedicated Discord servers for kimono, but I don't want to spam them too much. So we have officially made a Discord server. So if you want to make sure that you always know in advance, yes, once I'm back in the States, my schedule is going to be completely different and hopefully it'll be more consistent. So this is just for the next few months. While I'm still in Japan, my schedule is just, it's too hard to make 2 regular days per week. So Thursday, like I said, I'm gonna try and make sure that Thursday is always here. But if there's a second stream in a week, I'm not gonna be able to have it always be the same day or always be at the same time. And so if you want to be always up to date on when I'm gonna stream, I highly recommend joining the Discord server. We have plenty of spaces for kimono discussion, and the kimono discussion, it's perfectly okay if you are not well versed in kimono. If you want to come in and you want to learn more about kimono, you want to get advice from me or some other people who know about kimono for your coordination or really anything at all, you can do that in our kimono chat. We also have spaces to discuss, anything really that you're interested in, or do voice chat. If anyone is interested, I would be more than happy after the stream is over to pop over to Discord if anybody wants to do a voice call. Like, that's something I think would be fun. And that way, instead of having to be in the chat, if you want to bring something up or tell some kind of a story, we can do that after in the Discord and we can actually talk together. And I think that would be really fun. So I don't know if you guys are interested, but yeah, so Hungry Wolf, can we get a link in the chat? Yes, thank you, Knight. Yes. Hungry Wolf, are you still there? Thank you. All right, so in the chat now we have a link to the Discord and a link to my Instagram. Thank you. So this is brand new. We only have a few people in there right now, but I've also tried to save the announcement for the stream today. So yeah, if anybody wants to pop over after and join me over there, I can't wait to talk to you guys. I really hope that we can get a good community of people who love kimono, people who are interested, or even just, I don't know, if you're mildly curious, if you clicked on this stream thinking this is kind of a weird thing, what is this? You are also welcome. Because I think all of us kimono people can more or less confirm that yes, kimono is a really weird thing. Ooh, yay, wonderful. I can't wait to talk to you. Because actually, I think this chaotic night, I don't think we've ever been able to speak together, right? This will be the first time? Yeah, so as I was saying, we all know that kimono is a really weird thing. We love it, but yeah, I meant by voice. Because I know who you are, I think. Pretty sure. But yeah, no, we haven't actually gotten a chance to talk by voice before, and so I'm really looking forward to getting to officially speak together for the first time. So we all love kimono, but we will pretty much tell you that it's weird. It really, really is. Like, I mean, if you're interested in historical costuming, you've probably seen videos where they talk about, you know, achieving that perfect Victorian or Edwardian shape by like not only corseting but padding so that you could make your body fit the shape of the time. And for a lot of people who only watch those kinds of videos, that concept is a little bit foreign to us because we have this concept now that our bodies have to fit the aesthetic standard of the day. And so looking back and seeing that that wasn't the expectation back then, that no one expected you to have that S curve in the back, that, you know, that wasp waist. No one expected you to have that. You created that shape. But for those of us in the kimono community, that's basically what we've been doing. But instead of getting those like wonderful, beautiful curves, instead we are padding out so that we look like, I don't know, a spray bottle. we're chasing those ideals that you see when you go and visit a coliseum and you're looking at those pillars. That's what we're trying to look like. And that's an odd thing. So I mean, if you're just we're looking to be a cylinder. So if you clicked on here thinking this is odd as hell and I want to see more, yeah, you're welcome. Come join us, join the madness. And speaking of padding, I've always thought it was very, very funny that the perfect kimono body for women is that perfect cylinder because, see, join the madness. You'll like it eventually. Pretty sure. Um, so for men, because women, we have that aesthetic to be straight up and down because we have so many layers, and the garment itself is also straight lines. So we need to pad out our bodies so that the garment looks nice. Well, for men, it's a little bit different. So men's kitsuke is a lot more relaxed than women's kitsuke. Yeah, sorry. You got a little bit, you got a little taste, and you can't go back now. You just can't. So men's kitsuke actually requires a beer belly for the traditional shape. I'm being serious, like an actual beer belly. And I'm not sure if you've seen a lot of Japanese men, but younger Japanese guys, even a lot of middle-aged guys, don't have beer bellies. And the whole purpose, the reason why you need one, is because men's obi actually sit about here-ish. I know, it's too bad. You lost your kimono body. So it sits about here. So if you are too tiny here, the obi wants to migrate upwards. And so that's why. Yep. Yep. So in order to keep the men's kaku obi from riding up, it is considered ideal to have a little bit of a belly because the belly is going to keep the obi from riding up. And so Japanese men, especially younger Japanese men, typically have a body that is much more similar to what women pad themselves to look like. And so those guys actually have to pad their stomach. So they have to give themselves a beer belly for that kimono body. Really. And I do know some ladies who do what we call otokopoi, which is not real. This is not really a thing in Japan. This is actually something that the international community does more often, usually in Japan. If you are doing kimono cross-dressing, it's usually because of professional reasons. Yes. Yeah. Or if you're already rocking that dad bod, then you should get into kimono because you have the perfect shape for it. If you have that nice like dad bod or beer belly going on, you've already got that perfect shape. You don't have to pad it all. So what was I even saying? I don't remember. Does anybody remember what I was saying before I got distracted? Right. Right. Otokopoi. So usually in kitsuke in Japan, if you are cross-dressing, it's for a professional reason. So either there are comedians, usually male comedians will cross-dress, or another common scenario where a man will wear women's kitsuke is if if you're a dancer and you're playing a women's role, and that also goes in reverse. So in traditional Japanese dance, Men will play women's roles sometimes, and women will also play men's roles sometimes. So it just depends on the song. So typically, like, there's different techniques, and for performance, you would usually wear, even go so far as to wear the actual kimono. So usually, if you do see images of like a very theatrical looking cross-dressing person in kimono, there's a very high likelihood that either they are, yeah, I do agree. I do agree. But that's something we do in the international community. In Japan, it's really not common. So that's just something to be aware of. Like if I say something about like otokopoi to any, like pretty much any kimono person in Japan, nobody knows what it is. It's something that we started doing more so in the international community. But yeah, so you're more likely, if you see those really theatrical looking people, they're either dancers, or for women wearing men's kitsuke, sometimes it'll actually be takarazuka actresses because they're an all-female theater troupe. So if they're doing a more traditional based like play, they do have their otokoyaku, their male part actresses dressed cross-dressing. So those are where you're more likely to see it. But in the international community, we like to do it sometimes because it's fun. And like this chaotic night pointed out, they're really comfortable. Not only they're really comfortable, they're really easy to wear. Not just for comfort level, but also just to put on. So comfortable. And so because of that, we actually have women in our community who wear men's kitsuke for fun. And so it's kind of fun to realize sometimes, especially when they're really serious about it and they do pad their stomach, that we now have women giving themselves beer bellies with towels so that they can have that perfect dad bod kimono body to get that perfect shape. Yeah, we could do that when I'm back in Texas. I mean, he'd probably do it too because my dad's pretty much down for anything. I remember when I was a little kid and we would go over to my my grandma's house and we'd have all my cousins over, and me and the girls would all like put hair, like every hair accessory that they owned, in my dad's hair. Every single one. There were probably dozens in his hair, and we were painting his nails and just having a grand old time. And we did that to my uncle too. And my uncle was just like so embarrassed by the whole thing. My dad's just like, yeah, they're having fun. So I'm pretty sure if I asked, he would probably let me dress him in kimono. And I don't think I would need to pad him. Unless he's dropped the belly in the 3 years that I've lived in Japan. I think I could just put it on him and it would be really quick and easy. But yeah, so, and that's actually something else. I would not have thought of that. So there is actually a section in the Discord that if you have something specific that you want to see me do, whether that's something silly like dressing up my dad in kimono, or if it's something a little bit more serious, like you want to see specific kinds of tutorials for the streams, there is actually a part of the Discord where you can make requests for content in the future. So, as I said last time, and I don't know how many people are new this time, this this channel I really want to have not only be a resource, like I want to give you good, useful tips and information on how to wear kimono and how to wear it well, or how to dress other people in kimono and have it look nice. Of course, I do also teach private lessons online, and you're welcome to book lessons with me, but even if you don't, I want you to be able to get these good tips from my streams. But I also want us to have fun. So even doing some stuff that is just for entertainment purposes, be silly in kimono, that's all stuff that I want us to be able to do here because kimono is amazing and it's so much fun and it's so technical. And that is very important. I can't divorce that from kimono. Kimono is an art form, but that doesn't mean it can't also be silly. So I I don't want to sit here and pretend like I'm this prim proper teacher who's always serious because I'm not. I want this channel to reflect both who I am as a kimono enthusiast and as a teacher, but also as a celebration of kimono and of the community, the wider kimono community. And I want people who have never even thought about wearing kimono before to be able to come in here and see that we're having fun with this and that they can too. So I really appreciate all of you for coming in and joining me for my second stream. And I hope you got a lot out of it. And can we drop another link for the Discord before we go? So if anybody would like to join us over in the Discord, we'll hop in one of the voice chats and maybe we can visit for a while. So everybody have a good evening or a good morning, whatever the case may be. And hopefully I will see you soon. Bye.